Imagine having the life of your dreams. Not temporary cash and glory, but happiness and inner peace. Explore new ways to be a creator and take your own journey into greatness. Is it possible? What does it take to make that happen? It takes the person known for extreme results. He's called the cage breaker and the ultimate catalyst. Coming back from the brink of death and now crushing it for himself and his clients, this is Your Ultimate Life Podcast with Kellan Fluckiger.
Hello there and welcome to today's episode of Your Ultimate Life, episode 759. Excited to be here with you today. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you achieve a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy by serving with your divine gifts. Today I'm blessed to have a guest, Melissa Ross. I'll tell you a little bit more about her in a minute. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kellan.
You are so welcome, and I'm grateful for what you do. And I'm not going to spoil it a lot. I met you here a while ago and was really excited about the things that you're about in the world, and it's really nice. So why don't you first answer a question for me, and then we'll get into a little bit of what you do. I define creating the ultimate life as living a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy that you create by serving with your gifts or divine gifts. How do you define the ultimate life?
Oh my gosh, I love your definition. But I see your ultimate life as doing the thing that you're good at, that divine gift that you have. And I know some people would see that as making money doing that, or turning that into a job. But I see that as anything that is your full purpose. So if your purpose is to be a stay-at-home mom and giving love to children every day, then that's your ultimate life. If your purpose is to be out there speaking on stages, motivating people, then that's your ultimate life too.
So I couldn't disagree with that at all. It is using the gift or gifts that you were given to serve. Is that what you would say?
Absolutely. I love that definition. Just whatever your soul assignment is, whatever gives you joy, whatever gift that you have that you use to serve the world with.
You know, it's interesting that you would say that because people that have followed the podcast a little bit know the stories. And if you don't, it's in tightrope of depression. But my wife's name is Joy, and she's with me now going on 16 years because that was her soul contract. And she says that, when we got together, we didn't even know each other. And it was just go do this. And we both just sort of did. And 16 years later, it turns out to be magic. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about what you do. Tell me what you do, how you are using your gifts to add good to the world.
Yeah. So what I do is I teach children's yoga, and I started that in 2014. And I really didn't know at that time what my gift was. At that time, I was working for the federal government, and I had just come back after a 2.5-year leave, a sick leave. I had suffered postpartum depression and severe anxiety after my second child. My daughter was born. That was in 2011. And when I got back to my job, and I loved my job. I loved doing what I do. I was good at what I did. I always thought that was what I was meant to do. I had, found my way there. I thought that it was my purpose. I was meant to do it. And when I went through that healing, when I had that break and went through that healing, I came back a different person. And what I came to know through that healing is that different person was truly who I was. I was being someone else, to be in my marriage, to be in that job. I was being the person that I thought I needed to be, or that people expected me to be. I wasn't being my true self. And when I found my true self and went back to that job, I knew that I wasn't making a difference. I wasn't making the difference that I wanted to make. Sure, I was probably, writing policy that helped someone somewhere, but I wasn't truly touching people. And I came to really know on that leave that I loved working with kids. I was, my son had started school. He was in junior kindergarten, and I was volunteering in his class. I knew that I loved working with kids, and I had already been practicing yoga in my own practice for about 16 years at that time. So I knew that I loved yoga, and I found a way to marry those two things. And so in 2014, I started my children's yoga business. And then in 2017, I started coaching families. I found so many kids coming in stressed out at 8 years old, telling me they're stressed at school, having anxiety, not being able to listen to their bodies, worried about everything, struggling with bullies. And so in 2017, I started a coaching business as well. And I started coaching families and helping families find, a happier, more peaceful home life together.
So one of the things you said when we were chatting ahead of time was that the story time yoga, in which you use a children's book and you do yoga mixed with that. And we talked about a television show that you have where you use, book pieces and the kids get to see the book, and then you marry all that with yoga. But you told me that that was just part of what you do. You said one part of your business, Rise to Wellness, with the number 2.
Yes.
And you also said you do other things. So besides this Storytime Yoga, which is a beautiful marriage of creativity with authors and your passion for kids and yoga, which are all 3 great, what else do you do?
Yeah, I would love to tell you that, but let's touch on Storytime Yoga for a minute too. About, when we're talking about adversity and how we get started with things,
Yeah.
um, it's incredible how Storytime Yoga was created, because Storytime Yoga wasn't always what I was doing back in 2014 when I started my yoga business. I was doing full-on classes, and I was bringing fun in, and I was bringing story in, but I wasn't picking up a storybook in those classes. And the pandemic hit in 2020, and I had 3 teachers working for me. We were running 7 to 11 classes a week at 2 different places in our area, and everything got shut down. And I thought, well, what am I going to do to support my clients? What am I going to do for them? And, nobody thought that the pandemic was going to go as long as it did. And so my daughter and I started running classes free on social media. We ran them on Facebook, Instagram, and they went to our YouTube channel as well. And my daughter was actually really sick for the first 3 months of the pandemic, and we were in full isolation for those 3 months. And my kids were both in online learning, and I was here by myself, single mom. And I wasn't allowed to reach out for help. We were in isolation. So I thought, how am I going to support us and support all of my clients at the same time, and, find the time to lesson plan while I'm also working from home and helping them with schooling, which was really stressful at the beginning. And so I picked up a storybook, and I just thought, okay, I'm just going to read this storybook and see what happens. And I took all of the elements from our classes that we normally run, and I added them to reading the storybook, and we just became a part of the story. And that's all it was about at first. And it's changed over time to where we actually take the lesson out of the story. We do I am affirmations. We really anchor in the lesson that we're learning in the story. We visualize the story for the kids and really help them connect with the story. But right at the beginning, that first one was just like, how do we get fun infused into this free class? And it was by picking up the story and doing the yoga and becoming a part of the story, and really affirming that we can be those things that we're learning about in the story. We can be kind, we can be healthy, we can be a good friend, we can be anything that we're learning about in the story. And so that was really cool. And so Storytime Yoga began, and then it's now a TV show. And that's just one facet of Rise to Wellness. The second facet of Rise to Wellness is my life coaching, the coaching that I do with families to help them find strategies that work at home, to help them move through life in a positive, beautiful way, to look at how they're being, how they can use those strategies together. And, a lot of that is talking to parents as well, and helping parents through, finding the time to take that self-care for themselves, and finding ways to bring the kids into that and involve the whole family in that. And once we find the time to find that self-care for ourselves and really bring ourselves to a calm place, then we can be calmer parents and really understand our kids more, and help our kids through. So it's a big cycle. And it's really a lot of work with the parents as well as the kids. And then the third facet there is other projects that I'm moving into. One was the TV show, moving into that, and it just kind of married with the yoga. But the second is storybooks that I'm writing. I'm writing them with my son. They are children's books, and it's funny. Before I even started Storytime Yoga, my son and I were already writing our children's books. And so I love how it all comes together, and it's all just one big circle, and it all marries together perfectly. I may look at some retreats in the future. I know for sure with Storytime Yoga, we're going to be doing some live events and having some meet and greets and some coaching on the side with all of the live events and moving forward to get really the message across to everyone. And the message of Storytime Yoga is you are just loved exactly how you are, exactly perfectly how you are. You're loved unconditionally.
So there's some really interesting, you said a lot, and that's good. And it sparked some observations and questions, I guess. One of the observations that you said a bit ago was about affirming and teaching the kids that they can be what you're reading about. So connecting. And what occurred to me is when you're doing yoga or any stretching and breathing exercise, when you're doing that sort of thing, you put your body and your mind in a particular state. And that's good, and that's the intention of yoga. And combining the affirmation of your worth and the principle that you're teaching from the story while you're in that receptive state is a very effective marriage to help people understand the kids, understand like only kids do, that sort of mixture of mental and visceral understanding to have those things. So that was the first thought. I think that's a very elegant marriage of the conditioning of mind and body to understand that and then combining it with that. So that was the first thing I observed, and I thought that was really cool.
Thank you so much. And I love how, we can teach them to listen to their bodies through that too. Like we do that in the relaxation. We do a full body scan and we move into our bodies. We relax our bodies. We listen to them. We feel what the breath feels like. We feel what our body feels like as it's letting go. And then we anchor that in. We have those affirmations and we anchor in the message that we just bounced around and had fun to. Really put our body in a relaxed state. And gosh, if somebody had taught me that as a child, some of the things that I went through as an adult may not have been so harsh, and I may not have called it such a big adversity because I would have had those tools as a child, right?
I'm going to just be bold and say something, and I think you're going to agree. Maybe you throw something at me, I don't know. But here's, the postpartum depression that you had and the break and the realization that you were someone else and you'd been living up to a set of expectations that were external, even though you thought this, you had talked yourself into the idea, this is who I'm supposed to be, therefore I'm doing good. Mm-hmm. And you discovered that it wasn't true. And the only way you were able to discover that it wasn't true was to wade through deep water or march through the desert or whatever that allegory or, comparison you want to use. So then was that even a challenge or a struggle in the end?
Yeah, what a great question. It felt like a challenge and a struggle at the time, right?
Yeah, but I said in the end. Yeah. In the end, is that a challenge?
It's not. It's a blessing. In the end, it's a blessing, and I say that for everybody asks me if you could go back in time, would you take that away? And I would never take away any of my experience. They were all blessings in disguise. So no, and in the end, it was a complete blessing. But when you're in it, when you're deep in it, and you don't have the tools and the strategies to get through it, and you don't know what you're doing, gosh, it feels pretty heavy. Yeah.
So let's go with that because this is going to be something that you probably already do with the kids, and you certainly do with the parents. The key is when you don't know this and you go through stuff, it feels hard. That hardness forces you either to crumble and die, or you learn the tools and then you change and you come out the other side and say, no, I wouldn't change any of that. It was all a blessing. Mm-hmm. So that if you'd had the tools to start with, then whatever happened would, your attitude toward it would have been like it is now when you have an adversity. It's just a thing that's happening and I have to figure out what to do with it instead of, why is this happening to me? Oh no, that kind of thing. And so that is do you consciously do that with the kids too? where you say, well, I'm teaching you a tool, and this is what you do when you have these stressful moments, these anxiety, these feelings that an 8-year-old shouldn't have anyway, but they do. Is that what you do with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And it changes your perspective. It moves you out of a place of victimhood. And just like you said, of it happening to you, it moves you into a place of knowing how to get through it and moving through it in a positive way and not being a victim about it. Like your language changes. The you get through it with more grace. You get through it in a way where, and I don't want to say it's not harmful to your body, but I mean, all stress is harmful to our body, but like I can get through something without having a panic attack about it because I'm aware of it and I know the tools to get through it and I have a positive mindset about it, where someone else might have a panic attack and their body suffers from it and they go into a different state, right? So we create, by teaching these strategies, by teaching a positive way to get through things, by teaching the mindset, we create a safe way, a positive way to move through any adversity that might hit you. And I'll tell you, the kids learn it just by emulating it, and they intuitively know how to use their strategies. I once my daughter's been doing yoga since she was 3 years old, because obviously I was doing that and moving through those strategies just after she was born. Um, and I once watched her. She was about 5, 6 years old, and she choked on food at the table. And I watched her do it. I asked her if she was okay. She was still breathing fine. It was all good. And she said, I just need a minute, mommy. And she crossed her legs right there at the table and she put her fingertips together like this, like she was meditating. And she just closed her eyes and she took a few deep breaths and she opened her eyes and she said, I'm good now. And it was almost like she just intuitively knew, I have that strategy that I can just sit here and breathe and calm myself and check in to make sure I'm really okay. And she just did it without being prompted. And we're teaching them that they can check in with their body, that they can understand their body, that they can know their body. There's so many adults walking around that, and I've had people say to me, you know your body so well. Well, yeah, it's important. It's imperative that I know my body that well, because I can check in and know how I'm doing. And when I'm not doing well, know how to fix it.
So there's several things that I want to repeat, not because you didn't say them well, but because I want to put an underline. And that is, adversity isn't adversity. I don't care who you are, where you've been, or what it seems like. If it feels like adversity, what if you just think that maybe it is something for your learning? Because this experience that we're having here is spiritual beings having a physical experience. This experience here isn't designed to be easy or fun. It's designed to cause us to grow. So whatever's going on, understand it's not really adversity. It's an opportunity to grow. And you may not have the tools right now, and it feels like it sucks, but then the answer is not to get mad, but to look for the tools.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first thing that I heard you saying. When you get out the other side, you wouldn't change anything. And I'm not going to say any of my story here, but you know some of it. And I wouldn't change anything either. And sometimes people don't believe that, given, some of the things that have happened. But I wouldn't either. I'm 100% there with you. And the second thing, so that's the first thing. Everything happens for you. And I know you've heard that in woo-woo land, both you, me, and the people watching, but it's the truth. And if you say, if this is happening for me, what is the gift? What can I learn? And where can I find the tool to manage this? Or better yet, learn from it instead of just suffer through it. And you use the word grace. I heard my dad once say, we're not just going to get through it, we're going to get through it in grand style. I love that. So anyway, so the second thing you said was about kids. And this is kind of what I was referring to earlier. Kids don't have the barriers to truth that we develop. We invent barriers to truth, and kids don't do that because they're in connection to their spirit, their true essence, until we beat it out of them. And so with our society, I don't mean violence, but maybe emotional violence. And because they can experiment freely and they don't feel bad about it or weird or anything else. They just do stuff and then they see what it does. And so that's that beautiful marriage of teaching the body, teaching the principles, putting them in state to learn well, and then affirming that process. And when they're young like that, it is such a precious thing. It's one of the reasons I love so much what you're doing and who you're working with because the world is full of busted people, many of whom are parents, and busted parents create busted kids unless they don't and they do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, we're teaching those barriers to our kids, right? And it's up to our kids to break that cycle. And I use those words with my own kids. I point things out to my own kids and say, look, this is where my barriers have been. These are where this is how I grew up. This is what I learned, and I'm breaking through that. And I'm trying not to pass that along to you. I don't want to teach those things to you. And gosh, it brings me on to the word unconditional love. If you ever ask me who I truly am, I would say I am unconditional love and kindness. But I've really had to dive deep into what is unconditional love. And when I teach that to my children and show my children what unconditional love is, my old stories still come up from when I was a child. And I say to my children, I'm breaking through that so that I show you what truly unconditional love is, what that truly means, so that I can love you and allow you to be who you were meant to be, not who I think you should be, and parent you in that way. And yeah, it's really up to us as parents and also the kids to break free of that.
One of the things that comes up for me right now is you're talking about doing this to your kids, being unconditional love for them, modeling that, and doing it even verbally where you're describing it. And the foundation for all that is a fundamental truth that lots of people disagree with, and that is you can't love anybody else more than you love yourself. You may go through the motions and do things that you think demonstrates love, but it's not real, and we can have an argument later, not on this show. Not you, but whoever's watching it that thinks I'm crazy. But my question for you, Melissa, is I love the way you said, if I had to say who I am, core, I'm unconditional love, and you added a couple of other words. Do you go to the mirror every morning and unconditionally love yourself? Remind yourself, are you doing for you what you do for the kids?
I don't do it in a mirror every morning, but I'll tell you something that I do have affirmations that I say every night before bed. I have
Mm-hmm.
affirmations that I say every morning. They're on a cue card beside my bed, so I don't do it in the mirror. I have done the mirror exercises, but something else that we also do every morning, and I've been doing this with my kids for since about 2016, 2016, I believe. We actually have a big cardboard at our front door. And on one side, it has a bunch of affirmations. And it started with I am calm, I am peaceful. And 6 years ago, that's what it started with. And we would say that every day. And then we would scream from the top of our lungs, today is going to be a great day. And I started that because I was in such woe at the chaos that was happening in the morning while the three of us were trying to get out the door. I was a newly single mother, and there was such chaos. And I thought, if I tell them they're peaceful and calm, then maybe they will be. And I had such great effect by us all affirming that every morning. That's really where our journey with I am affirmations started and where it continued. And then I allowed the kids to add in their own affirmations. And so every morning before my kids go out the door, we say the list of affirmations. And if they're not willing, my daughter, she's 11 now, so sometimes she's not willing to say all of the affirmations. I ask her just to pick one. Just pick one thing today that you're affirming, and she'll give me one. Usually it's I am ready or I am calm before she goes out. But then we scream, today is going to be a great day. So we don't necessarily do that in the mirror, but I do that for myself in the morning and at night. And then I do that with my kids before they leave, that they will affirm something before they leave the house, whatever it is for the day.
So, yeah, the mirror is just a tool, and it causes us to look at ourselves deeply,
Yeah.
but that certainly isn't the only way to do it. The point that I was trying to make, and I figured, like this wasn't scripted, I figured you were going to say yes, but the key, the key to this working, I know you know this, I guess I'm asking, I believe the key to this working is intentionally developing the love, the compassion, the forgiveness for others that have inflicted their stuff on you so that you had the pile of barriers to break through. All of those things, that personal work, otherwise we are just saying, do as I say, not as I do. And the truth of that whole forgiveness, I believe, is what gives power to the work that you do with your kids and parents, that I do with clients. Do you believe that's true, or am I making up
Oh,
stuff?
absolutely I do. And that personal
Mhm.
work, I call that my being. Who am I being? Right. And
Mhm.
and I delve to this day, I still delve into who I'm being in my interactions with myself, with other people, in my forgiveness towards other people, in how I react to other people and their way towards me. I continually work on my being and how that affects my inner self and the way I interact with other people.
So that's wonderful. And that's what I expected. And that's what I think too. My own experience is learning how to be. And the thing that makes me know this life was designed for us and not to us is none of us got a manual, but we're all really yearning in our spirit to be on that quest, to be love and to be loved, to
Mhm.
serve and to be willing to accept graciously the service and connection and kindness of others around us. So, if somebody wants to find your stuff on YouTube or your website or some of the programs or things that you're doing, tell me where they go and what they should expect.
Yeah, they can find me with Breathe With Me Yoga or Rise to Wellness with the number two across all of social media: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of those places. If you go to melissaross.yoga, everything is linked there on melissaross.yoga. You can link to all of my social media. You can link to my YouTube channel to see episodes of Storytime Yoga. You can link to all of the other platforms that Storytime Yoga is on. It'll link to my coaching as well. So melissaross.yoga, and then Breathe With Me Yoga and Rise to Wellness across socials.
Breathe With Me Yoga. I love that. And Rise to Wellness. I didn't know about Rise to Wellness until we were talking before the show. I knew your
Yeah.
Storytime stuff. So here's the thing I want to invite people that are watching to do. Because when I ask that question of Melissa and also of other guests, they quickly rattle off a bunch of URLs, websites and YouTube channels and handles and everything else. And you know what? That won't do you any good at all unless you actually go there and you actually slow down for a minute and say, am I really satisfied with my life? Am I happy? Or would it really serve me? Can I love myself a little more by checking out one of Melissa's videos and watching how she interacts with the kids and how she teaches that? And could I imagine doing that maybe with myself or with a friend or with my own children? So I just wanted to make sure that even though she rattled all that stuff up, it won't matter unless you say, I could use that. It might make me happier. And I might be able to walk out my door and say, I am calm. I am honesty. I am my word. And then scream at the top of your lungs, it's going to be a great day or make it a great day or whatever you want. So, Melissa, if you had to leave me, if I was there with you and you were just wanting to give me something that I could take away and think about, what would you tell me?
Oh, I love this question because, that just gave me chills because I came across something. I always say I am unconditional love and kindness. And I always tell the kids in my classes, we end classes with namaste. I feel good in every way. The goodness in me sees the goodness in all of you. And I always make sure that they know that they're unconditionally loved just as they are. But I came across something from a mentor of mine, Steve Hardison. His son was interviewed, and his son said that Steve Hardison told his children every single day, there's nothing you need to be, there's nothing you need to do for me to love you. And I started saying that to my children. I wrote it on a sticky note and I taped it to their bedposts. And I started saying that to them every night. And I say that to everybody I meet because it's not just for my children, it's for everybody I meet. I truly am unconditional love and kindness. And I say to you, Kellan, and I say to everybody listening, there's nothing you need to be, there's nothing you need to do for me to love you.
And what I hope is that each of you listening understands that that's truth. Because so often on these kinds of things, people talk about self help and elevating consciousness. I had interview last night on my LA Talk radio show. Somebody was talking about elevating consciousness. You hear all this stuff all the time. And the truth is you're a divine being. And that you don't have anything to prove to me, to Melissa, or anyone else. Because you were given gifts and talents when you came. And what you make out of those is what you're going to take back to your Creator. And that's between you and the Creator, and that's it. Melissa, I want to thank you for being with me today and for sharing your heart with our guests.
Thank you so much for having me, Kellan. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. I want to urge you, all of you, to listen a couple of times. Melissa's thoughts and spirit are open, clear, obvious, and truth carries its own power. It needs no embellishment. It needs no noise. And what she has shared with you today is truth. And if you make a choice to allow it to move your spirit, move your heart, and change your actions, you'll be able to move forward and create your ultimate life.
Open your heart and this time around, stand.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We hope that you take it deeply into your heart and decide for yourself how you can create anything you desire. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to this podcast and share it with your friends. As always, we'd love to hear your feedback and topic suggestions. Until tomorrow, this is Your Ultimate Life with host Kellan Fluckiger.
Stand with your heart in the sky and your feet